can't just go this way.
You still working through the summer or you off?
I might be off. I don't know. If I get a good offer and stuff, if something's out there, I'll take it. You know what I mean? I'll work through it. You know.
What y'all out right now? The schools that you was working at, everybody.
Almost all of them. Some of them are still going.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, some of them are still going. You know what I mean? Yeah. I got 2 that's still going.
Peace.
Yeah. So.
Busy. Is that yours, brother?
Is that a video?
I'm streaming the class live like I do every week.
Wait, how do you do that?
On YouTube.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. You will, definitely. You definitely will.
Wait, you press a thing and record.
All right, so everybody, today's the last class before show and prove. So I always like everybody to let me know, what they showed and proved throughout the year, what they intend to do, your plans, your builds, whether it's online or it's in person though, I'm gonna say like, I'm gonna start with the most disappointing thing I see all the time and then lead up to the good. But I think the real life has mirrored a lot of online stuff, where we see a lot of gossip in real life, where I be around gods and like we just been, you know what I mean? I don't really know what they're doing. I'm not trying to be like an ass, you know what I mean? Like I'm doing something and I don't know, I really don't know what they're doing. Like they could be doing something. Like, like how we used to always come to school and brothers would be, if you see somebody you haven't seen in a little bit, they're giving you a rundown of, I don't get that now. You know what I mean? I get like complaints. I get like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't do this because he's doing that. I can't do, and some brothers that's legitimate because they're really building. So I know what they're building. But in general though, I feel like that's more of an online way of doing things, and it kind of seeps into real life. That's why I always like the show and prove idea. People keep going to show and prove. Like, we're supposed to have stuff that we did, man. Like over the past year that we could say that we did this, we did that. And if you didn't have anything you did, you wasn't really going to be able to come around, And that was legitimately enforced and stuff, Doesn't feel that way. One thing that happens with gentrification in neighborhoods, and I don't know if that affects the gods or if they ever want to admit that affects them, But one thing that happens in gentrification is that like people don't really live in their neighborhood anymore. They're in their neighborhood, but now they don't really live in it. And when people gentrify a neighborhood, it's not just about race. It's about that the people that come in don't really have a culture that they bring. So like it's not like a whole bunch of Irish people came and took over Harlem and then they were doing Irish things in the street. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't like it. We think it's whack, whatever it is. They're river dancing, right? But at the same time, though, they brought something that they felt was like the culture. You don't see that. You know what I mean? They're bringing the culture that they've already sustained. Now that we're more digital now, too, they can keep it to themselves, even as they move into their new neighborhood. They don't have to really share it, instill it, affect the outer area and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it's just something I think about. I don't know if that affects the gods, But this used to be like very neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? Like a real neighborhood. Like this school was like a neighborhood core. And I'm just doing the knowledge because like, this summer's slow to begin, So the summer might show me different. You know what I'm saying? Like it might be different, Because May was terrible. The weather was horrible. It was raining almost all the time and stuff like that. So, and it was cold, for May, very cold. So that didn't really, give you everything. But I wonder about these things. But the show and prove, what are you showing and proving? What are the plans that you have? What are the achievements that you have? What are the adjustments? You know, for me, it's not really about show and prove. I've always been kind of like in that year thing, you know, January to December, you know what I mean? I'm sorry, I don't go by the exact calendar, you know what I mean? But January to December, so all my achievements are counted by December, you know what I mean? And shit, my born day is at the end of December, so I get to do that. I get to start all over because it's really 1 week after, and then the year is done. It's like 10 days, but even still, the show and prove should be adjustments, you know? If we go to show and prove and we start learning things, you should. When I go to show and prove God and I start building with guys, I'm always thinking like, oh man, we need to. God might build about something like, yo, I need to go into that chamber. Like I need to study that. Well, I'm not studying enough of this. Or I see the gods achieve certain things. I'm like, maybe I could achieve that too. Maybe we could go into that, man. Maybe we could get something out of that. Or the way that they achieved it. This is what if I summed up all of the show and proves I've been to, they've really been about that. God, I don't remember performances too much.
Mhm.
Not that they was whack at all. I don't remember performances at all. Like, you know, yeah, I really don't. I don't remember like if somebody said, "What's the greatest show and prove performance you saw?" I really, I wouldn't have an answer. And that's not because it was whack. Look, a lot of brothers that I thought was dope was up there. You know what I mean? But I don't remember any of that kind of stuff. I remember the other stuff. You know. So when we talk about that, if you notice, I'm always talking about how we could build, how we could do this. One of the adjustments that I'm making that I started already is that like I had a lot of years where I wrote a lot of plus lessons, and I'm starting to write more. I'm almost finished with the 1 to 10 kind of a worksheet. They're like worksheets. They're not showing proven things. They're not giving you understanding and stuff like that, but just kind of giving you insights, kind of a list of books under each degree and stuff too, just to add on little things to note when you research what I think is incorrect, insufficient. But because I was building with one of the gods, and we was building he's a very talented writer, talented builder, and he wanted to be a better writer and stuff, So to me, that was kind of, for him it's not, but for me it was kind of a no-brainer type question because I think he's got all the skill sets, but sometimes you need to know what you can do to it, and I was writing some of it on the way here, but then I flipped back to the 1 to 10. So I'm literally writing 2+ lessons at the same time. It just was whatever was coming into my head at the time. But when this other plus lesson is about how to be a writer. Like, what are the things you could do to be a writer? You know what I mean? And it's bracketed so far in 2 major things, like the reading and the writing, because people don't take account how important the reading is, To me, the reading is like, those are the jump shots in the gym, You need to take thousands of those, If you just read one type of book that you like, let's say if it's a type of style of book, So let's say, I'm saying novels in the first person, that kind of shit. Always easy to read because you relate to it. It's first person, things like that. Right? Or we could say hood novels and give it more of a distinct definition. Let's say they're really well-written hood novels. I don't want to make it lesser, right? We'll take out all the crappy ones, say the really well-written ones, right? Which is like 2% of them. But if you just kept reading those, you wouldn't really write. By default, you wouldn't really find your own way of writing, You'd be writing like that, you know what I'm saying? You'd be writing like that. That's why I liken a lot to sports like that. If you was playing with, I always have that Bill Cartwright in my head. Remember he was on the Bulls when he was old, and he used to shoot like this. He used to grab the ball like this and then twist it. It was weird. You look it up, Bill Cartwright. He was on the Bulls for one or more of the Jordan runs when he won chips. But I guess Jordan, overrode that. But I'm like, if you hang out with a guy that shoots terrible, your form is going to be shit too. You know what I mean? Like it stings. So if you only read one type of book, you're not going to get much of a diversity. You know what I mean? And of course, when I go in there, I lay down the different perspectives because my perspective, and I don't know if I'm going to put this in there, but just so everybody knows that will get it. And I read a ridiculous amount of books in 1 week. So I have a set amount of pages. That's something I put in there. Have a set amount of pages, a goal that you go through. That way, through tough times and stuff, you could learn to prioritize. You know, if you're not really caring to be something, right? You wouldn't know if you don't prioritize and have the challenge of prioritizing, right? So somebody says they want to get in shape. If they don't prioritize, say, you know what, I'm not gonna go out with you. I gotta get this workout in, and you know I messed up through the whole day, and I gotta get it in, right? To make the maybe 4 or 5 days a week, right? And this is Sunday, right? He's trying to do Sundays, right? Then now you took up the challenge, though. You know what I mean? You prioritize, and that workout. Let me tell you something. That workout on Sunday could be like, I wanted to be with this chick. I hate this fucking workout. It's the worst workout ever because you feel like a dick. You know what I mean? Like you're like, I could have been doing this other thing. But the bad workout makes the other ones stronger. You know what I mean? They make them greater. They make them stronger. And it's the same thing with this. You could say, listen, I'm going to read a certain amount of pages, right? And let's say to make the last couple of pages, you reach a level of burnout, right? And let's say like I'm really burnt out. I don't know if I can finish these. That's why when I tell people this, though, you also hop on from different books, you know? So like I read 300 pages a week, right? That's not hard for me to if I spread it out through Sunday, you know? So I don't even do that, you know? So like by yesterday afternoon, I already did it. And it starts on Monday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon, I already did it, right? Now, I did that. That was me being intense. Every single moment I was traveling. You know, I'm going every borough to every school. So I'd be traveling. So, but I also want to write. So I like get the reading done and then the write. So I get close to burnout because I'm reading too much. So then by the end of the 300, I'm reading like, I got like the other shits that's easy. Like what I'm reading now, Kevin Garnett's autobiography. You know what I mean? Like, he's got some jewels. It's entertaining, but it's not like a heavy thing. It's not like he's going through heavy concepts and everything like that. You know what I mean? So all of the science and all of the history books that I was reading in the beginning of like Monday and then Tuesday, I had opened one and I was like, nah, I can't do it. I can't do it. I started reading this one at like yesterday afternoon. And I didn't know it was going to be like this, but I have a lot of Deepak Chopra books, Deepak Chopra books, and he has one about quantum time and space, right? And I thought it was just his philosophies, and I thought a philosophy book, I could, read that fast. It actually, interesting format. It's a collection of scientific papers that he had some kind of hand in, right? Or advocates that talk about the scientific link between consciousness and quantum physics, and a lot of it through the paradigms of Indian spiritualities, because you know that they deal with that a lot. So it was way more technical than I thought it was. You know what I mean? So I read 5 pages. Then after like the 6th page, I was like, nah, this is not going in. This is not going down. So then I switch up to something easier. It was a Tupac book I was reading called Changes. And it's a collection of interviews with a lot of people that knew him. But it's bracketed where they have the person's name. I like this. This is a very easy format type of book to read, where it's interview clips, no questions. But it just goes through his time period. So if it has his time period when he was doing Tupacalypse Now, the first album, it'll have all the people that were like around him involved, and it's just broken down by the moments, you know. So that's a quick read because it's the way people talk.
Did you go to the Death Row era?
You know what I mean? Right now I'm into the beginnings of Me Against the World.
Okay.
That's what I'm up to. So that's my favorite album is. So it's up to the good part. You know what I mean? But very interesting time. Very interesting because
Peace.
Peace, God. It juxtaposes It juxtaposes
screen.
him doing all the things he was doing, not just like rap here, that there.
Mhm.
Kind of just so you see like the mentalities, you know, that he had. And I think it's a great book to read because people always go, oh, he wasn't really gangsters. First off, the position that he was in, though, I've talked to a lot of Brooklyn dudes in the streets, so they know Brooklyn dudes in the street care for him, including Medina gods that were in the street. I always disagree vehemently, so I have to be the one. I always have to be the one Medina god that is out of the loop. But what I found interesting is this idea of the two worlds. I'm going to bring this up because it's good tangent.
Can I get a hand from your brothers, man, with the equipment?
Yes. What equipment are you moving, guy?
I'm moving my speakers into the computer room.
All right, hold on. We will be back. We will be back and continue that, Bill.
Really, I've been doing some little bit of local one stuff. Like one day. Yeah, I've been doing one day a week, so I'm still getting lots of fun. Yeah, they did that since COVID, so that's what I've been doing. That one day. Yeah, maybe one day, but I like, yeah.
Oh, in the back, right?
No, he's at computer room. Computer room. say, just put them in that corner. They're usually around doing stuff here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just go there, I'm gonna get, Jamal, yeah, I'm at the store with him.
Almost.
Yeah, no, yeah, I had to school with Jamal. But, yeah, I think that, yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, any information I'll start to send on. Alright.
All right, everybody. My apologies for the little delay. I'm not going to forget what I was going to say about the Tupac thing. Yeah, same here, God. Same here. Me Against the World, man. That was such an amazing album. But let's see. Right, Lord Takim, when I'm done with it, I will announce it and stuff, and then you can email me and stuff, you know? Right? So then we can do it. Yeah, you could never trust that. I mean, there's no way chicharrón is healthy in any respect. That's wild right there. That is just nuts, right? Yeah, but what I was saying about the they got all the speakers gone?
Yes.
Okay. The this idea of Tupac, the double worlds was, and this is where the real issue comes from.
Hello?
When Tupac was building, I mean, was with all these hoods like Asian Jack and all these other people, right? He basically ended up taking a fall. He ended up taking a fall for that rape charge when it wasn't really him, but it most likely was them, right, that were involved in it. And the idea of no snitching was that, like, you run with them, so you can't really snitch. But at the same time, technically, he's not really of that type of hood, but he's getting benefits out of being with them, so called. So now he's snitching, right? This is the argument, right? But
Thank you, God.
that's peace, God. That's peace.
Peace.
The real issue is more so, to me, this conflict that says if you're doing something bad with certain people, right? When do you say no and enough is enough? I don't think in his life he was able to make those decisions definitively.
No, he was mad young.
You know?
He had that knowledge and wisdom, but he was
Yeah,
young.
you know. So like he's getting mad because he's upset because he's innocent of the rape charge, but he's also not supposed to be telling on anybody because he's involved with them, supposedly getting something out of them. And the truth is, though, is that aside from getting an experience, though, he really wasn't getting much out of them. If we really look at what Tupac gave the world and what his talents were, only he thought he needed them. You know what I'm saying? Only he thought he needed them and was being bloodsucked. And it's funny because people go, "Oh, he was not right exactly. He wasn't street," and it was like, I don't understand how the 5% don't see the contradiction in this, because here was somebody that was fighting the inner pull of what was not right and exact, and struggling through it. And it's the struggle for righteousness that makes him call out all of these people. Not saying that it was complete. I'm saying that there was a struggle. And that's what I find very, very interesting, because as 5%, a lot of 5% throughout the history of this nation, it just is the way it is. But we get caught in that. A lot of 5% get caught up in both of these worlds, because for me, God, this is me. When you really 5%, there's a lot that you sacrifice for that. There's a lot that you don't do. There's a lot of ciphers where you become a pariah, where you become one that could be bloodsucked, but not get the benefit of what you sharing.
It ain't always you get out what you put in. It ain't
always no. You usually putting in way more than you ever get out. You know what I mean? And if you don't understand that as a 5%, then you're gonna get upset, and you're gonna age much quicker. And legends in this nation, God, have aged quickly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Legends in this nation have aged quickly. You know what I mean? Because of that. It's something to get used to. It's something to understand. And we see somebody like Tupac, man, today, because today 25, like the year that he died, right? The age that he died, 25, that's today's 15. Right?
Yes, sir.
That's today's 15, because they still don't know how. A lot of them still don't know how to work, have their own place. A lot of them can't. I'm not even going to say that they're not trying.
Right.
A lot of them, because of the economy and the way that this society is, can't. It's not like you could just, people go, oh, we just go hustle in the street and stuff, right?
That ain't even there no more.
That's not a thing anymore. That's not, yeah. And so you get mad at the kids to make some online stuff, make some online TikToks and stuff like that. How do we expect them to make some kind of money? You know what I mean? The young kid that hasn't found his talents, that's a late bloomer, So this is a lot of stuff that I think about. You know what I mean? The Tupac life is a very interesting life to analyze and really delve into. King, you said the fact that he clapped off duty cops, off duty alphabet boys. You said for wrongfully hating a black motorist, and him getting dissed by so-called street cats who wouldn't do that is wild. Yeah. Again, for anyone that's really researched that, I've read a lot of versions of what happened with that, and it never fails to be a superhero story. You know what I mean? Him doing that was just, and then people try to dismiss it and say that, oh, well, he wasn't thinking, he just did it and stuff. That's stupid.
The extended speakers.
It still was heroic. Like, I don't know where anybody could insult that, because still in all the history of hood, there is no one to do that. There is no one to do that yet. In the history of hip hop, nobody known to do that. So, all the guys that tried to diss Tupac, legends, they didn't do that. And the bodies that they mostly spoke on record of having wasted were not the enemy. They was just, other crabs in the giant ghetto bucket. So it's something to think about. You know what I mean? I think we try to have a definitive thing, and and again, this was all back with the concepts of reading, letting it be a foundation to how you think. And of course, it'll be in that plus lesson about this concept of writer's block. You know what I mean? When you don't think about writer's block anymore, it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? It reminds me of a Krishnamurti thing, right? On the positive side, on a different wavelength. Gino Krishnamurti used to say that when you acknowledge that you were having a certain feeling, the feeling goes. So that when you acknowledge that you're happy, that feeling goes, you know? So like it's more like a thing like, oh man, we having a ball today. Yo, this is crazy. Then that's when it's kind of like fading. Like it's you're recognizing what happened. So this kind of what Krishnamurti was saying when he said that, you know what I mean? So with Krishnamurti, a lot of stuff was about tapping into the mind, but sometimes the awareness of the mind can also stifle the mind. In other words, this, right? Sometimes the minute you're aware of something is the minute you're consciously aware of something is the minute that you start to analyze what is happening. So you take yourself out of the moment, you know? So there's kind of a combination of things, you know? And he said, no, now Cypher Sunez, we do the knowledge. We always have to be doing the knowledge and this and that, right? Think about it this way, right? Athletes, when we do the martial arts, right? All these kind of things. Why are we practicing so much to get it right and exact? Why are we memorizing 120? Right? So that way, when it's necessary, it's on recall immediately. Like it just pops out. You ever be walking, doing? I know you got it because you have 120 for a long time. You're doing something, and you just that's the degree right there. Boom. Right. And you basically take evasive action without even thinking. You know, without even going through the process of this is the degree and this is how I see the degree, and so I must do it. No, you just boom. You know what I'm saying? This is the concept, and it's not really an anti-knowledge concept. It's about not flowing. It's about not cutting the flow of awareness to action. Not, in other words, not separating the mathematics, where it's 1, and then a distant 2, and then a distant 3. Where in real life, it's supposed to be a fluid motion. You know what I mean? Right? It's a fluid motion. It's 1, 2, 3 in the mind, 4, 5, 6. We did it. Something is happening to us. God, the outside world is built or destroyed in some way, and something is born. And there's a fluidity to it and an awareness that is a combination of something that is embedded a long time and then something that is acting, you know? When you're young, like Tupac was, that doesn't always flow that easy. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't flow that easily because you haven't experienced everything, you know? And then also, too, you could also be overloaded with experience, you know? I think that Tupac was super overloaded with experience, though. You know, sometimes you're successful, and this is my perspective. I relate to this. You're so successful in certain things that when you encounter street life, so like the bulk of my life is encountering street life that I did not and would not engage in and will not, but as a 5%, right? So we prepare so much, right? We're preparing the knowledge, situations, builds, how we live, how we build, how we show and prove the righteousness. And we constantly meet people that are fly by the seat of their pants, though, and succeed. At least at that current level, you could always dismiss it. The youth don't care about this dismissal, absolutely, and say, oh, well, you know, the law or death will catch up to them, blah, blah, blah. That's not the point. The point is that when you go build with these young cats, they're successful doing bullshit and doing it very well. So how do you counter this? How do you deal with this? And that could be jarring though for someone that you come from a cipher where you had to prepare and the battles were about preparation and execution constantly, you know? Whereas now when you're dealing with the young, building with them, whether they're legal or not legal or illegal, right? You're dealing with the success of raw emotion, right? The truth is that when we look at Tupac, right? The reason you study him is because a lot of his success was a combination of both. All those first movies, when I learned those first movies like Juice and stuff, he was more prepared than any actor in there. So he knew the role, he had memorized the entire script. Like he memorized the entire script before he went into Juice. Like, what if he didn't get it? You know what I'm saying? Like, he memorized the whole thing. He knew how he would play the actor. His choices were distinct. So, like, they were saying that he didn't do like crazy, rabid, evil black man type cliche shit. He did it more on the subtle tip. Not yelling, but very sinister. So his angles were different, meaning that you could tell he took time with it. He thought to do that, you had to think about the other way of doing it. Right? You have the chess move because, like, okay, I could do it this unique way, but what if they're expecting and demand the other way? Because it's Hollywood. They want the same shit from brothers all the time. Right? So he had to make a chess move there. So he had to have taken time to do this. Every single audition, when he did the first couple of albums that I've already read about, like the first three, right? Strictly and Tupacalypse Now, photo shoots, he was always on time. He was even there before the photographers. And that's a photographer saying it. Studio session, he didn't write nothing in the studio. He had everything written already and was going to the studio to just record and then bounce. You know? So he was a worker's worker. You know what I mean? These things get lost in the shuffle, you know? And then, you know, of course, with black art, especially, you know, black American art, everybody thinks it's all raw emotion. It doesn't take that much genius. You know, they just do it and they do it. So if someone is prolific, they just go, oh, you know, it just comes out of those people. You know what I mean? It just, you know, it's never seen as like real thinking, right? The guy go, you know, and I'm a fan. I love a lot of country, you know, but Dolly Parton is really dope, right? She's written thousands of songs. It's always about her acumen. Even though that 99% of the songs are really relaying intense emotion. Like there is raw emotion, you know what I mean? Which is the most, you know, songwriting. But they always look at her, they take the time to find out why she has this acumen, you know, where does the genius come from? With brothers, they're just doing shit, you know? You read about, like, when you read about blues musicians, the way they write about them is just more like, you know, it's all hard times and slavery channeling. You know what I mean? Like, they're just, they're making up a whole new genre right there, like the whole new shit, you know? The songwriting is crazy deft, you know? Like, we're singing about things that nobody even thought about singing about in ways that nobody thought about singing about, you know? So it's just, you know, so the same thing happens with hip hop though. People don't really respect the prolific hip hop, you know, songwriter. You know, like King, you know, King just be saying shit, you know, he goes in the booth and just says shit, you know, it doesn't matter. It rhymes, you know, but we know that's not true. But I'll have that whole plus lesson. It has a whole bunch of things about, you know, the reading process, what type of books, how to balance that off. You know what I mean? Like, when do you quit a book? You know what I mean? Because I noticed that a lot because I quit. There's only one book. It's a physics book, and you know that shit was way over my head. I was like, and I said, damn. And I kept reading because I'm that, you know, I'm a finisher. And I was like, nah, I'm not getting none of this. If somebody asked me to summarize or give them a gist, I wouldn't. I got nothing for you. So I was like, I gotta put that one on the side, put it away, and start all over again. But then it demands that you get physics books that are on your level. You gotta figure out your level. But there's a lot of books that are on brothers' levels all the time that they just quit on because the shit is boring. But that's gonna be the majority of the shit that you need to read. Political histories are always boring. Very rarely does a talented writer really write about that because the political histories don't have the micro impact of policy. So you don't see like how the war might have, each move impacts individuals like a more personalized history of a people. So those always get boring. They always get boring. They only get entertaining when they give you parts of an individual's chaotic history. Like, let's say if we read a political history of the last 10 years in America, the Trump stuff would probably be entertaining to read because he's fucking wild. You know what I mean? Like, right? But in general, it's gonna be
Right.
it can be boring. Like, I'll give you examples. Essential books, C.L.R. James, Black Jacobins. I don't care what anybody says. That's a tough read. That's a boring political read. You know, it's just that we need to know the Haitian Revolution is, you know, it's critical to all Black history, the whole world, right? You need to know Haitian history. You got to read that book. Like, you got to put the thing. Cheike Diop. You want to do Father of Civilization and build a Father of Civilization? You got to read some of the Diop. You got to read Diop. And Diop didn't give a shit about the layman. He didn't write the book for the layman. He wrote it for the scholars that he was going against. So, you know, he wrote it tough. But it is, I don't think for most people, if they got through some college, if they're a heavy reader, they could get through that book. It's just that you have to get slower. So if you have a timetable, it's all going to be in the plus lesson. I'm just riffing now. But if you have a timetable, say, listen, I'm doing what Sunez said. I'm saying I'm reading this amount of pages, but I can't get through it because this book is so boring. Have an amount of books saying, like, I used to do this, right? When I first read my first long book, and I mean like books that are 600 plus pages, I knew I wouldn't have the discipline to not get bored. First long book I ever read was like that was Amos Wilson's. What did he call it though? Damn, Black something.
Blueprint?
Blueprint for Black Power. Yeah, I read that whole book. In fact, I didn't get much out of that book because I felt his other books are better. You know?
Seemed like it didn't have to be that big.
Yeah. And of course, obviously from my angle, I disagree with some of it. You know what I'm saying? Like he wrote about like Latinos in the hood as like gentrifiers and stuff like that. And I was like, that's not really a good angle. Because it's not like Argentinian people are coming in here. European Argentinians coming here and taking over that wasn't what happened that's not the angle, you know what I mean? And, you know, and so I didn't agree with everything that he was writing and stuff, but I was like, yo, it has like, I think it had like 30 chapters. So I said, yo, I'm gonna do, at the beginning of that year, I read it. I said, listen, there's 52 weeks in a year. Every weekend, if I read one chapter, that shit's done in 30 weeks. You know what I mean? Even if it's like less than 30. So even if I mess up, I still got some recovery. Like if I'm just fatigued by the book, I could skip a week and do it the next week, you know? So some books are like that. Some books I'll read like 10 pages and then boom. I always tell people that I read novels horribly. They're not about real life, so I lose interest. Right? They make believe characters, so I kind of drift off and I daydream. And then I'm like, damn, who the fuck is this character in? I'll be going in there and I get lost. So I'm trying to, I work on it, right? Sometimes I'll just read one chapter of that. You know what I mean? That's it, one chapter. You know? Then I keep going. You know what I'm saying? And I make it steady. You know? So you always do it like that. If you are having trouble reading everything, then read what is entertaining. You know what I'm saying? Read what is entertaining. And then try to inculcate, you know, other stuff in it though, you know? But that reading is a foundation though, you know what I mean? Like that out of the hundreds, you know, the hundreds of artists that I've interviewed, been around, the ones that are real lyricists though, the main difference is that they read. Guys, it's not a secret though. It's not like a magic trick and shit. The fucking lyricists read. You know what I mean? The ones I learned about, like Pharaoh and others, but the ones that I build with, the Keras ones, the Blue Azuls, the Spit Gems, that's a reader right there. Spit Gems is a reader. The guy's always reading books. He's not buying fucking bullshit. He's reading books. He's buying books. You know what I mean? The Infinite Minds, they're reading books, you know? So what was it? I always tell kids a story. I messed up this high schooler when I was doing a class session, and I was telling her, listen, Bumpy Knuckles, before he was a MC, he was a bodyguard. And he was bodyguard for Nas, particularly, like one of the people. And they asked Bumpy in an interview I read, because I interviewed Bumpy, but I didn't talk about that. But in the interview I read about that Bumpy did, he said, what was the most unique thing you learned about Nas? Because they were thinking like maybe he learned some things about rhyming and shit like that, And he said, when you go to Nas's house, you're gonna find books everywhere, on the floor, on the bed, open, on the desk, just a sloppy barrage of books everywhere. That's why he got the lyrics like that. You stay reading.
Talib.
Oh yeah, those are readers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are serious readers. I mean, Talib and Mose, they had a bookstore, so they was reading. They was
technique.
Tech. Like I said, I met Tech in college. Because he was going when he went to Penn U, got locked up, got out. He got his degree in CUNY, and he was at Hunter College. I met him at a seminar. That's how I met him. And I was asked to be on a panel. And it was like 98, 97, 98. And I was already spelling the doom of hip hop. I was saying like it's too commercialized, it's gonna fall. There's too much wrong with it. Everybody's disagreeing with me. I'm saying Puffy is evil. I was always saying that. I was saying that since 94. So I was always a heretic. I'm the guy with the sign that says Puffy will destroy hip hop, you know what I mean? Type shit. And so I'm doing my usual stick there, you know what I mean? And a lot of people's disagreeing and shit. I say, man, what a pop ass crowd, you know what I mean? They think that they think that Diddy's No Way Out is a classic, you know what I mean? That kind of crowd, you know what I mean? And they have some people from the crowd speak and ask questions. And Immortal Technique got up. He didn't know me. He got up. He said, "Yo, what that brother's saying there was right. What everything he said, he really, he was really agreeing with me and giving some insights. You know what I mean?" And so I was like, "Yo, thank you for that," because this whole crowd was like, "That's crossover shit," And then they had like some freestyle beats, and people got on the mic and freestyled, and Tech freestyled, and I knew he was a fucking monster. He gave one of the most hardcore verses I ever heard live, and then he went to give the mic to the next guy. They refused to take it. Guy gave it back to me, and at the time I said, "Listen, I don't rap. I'm a journalist. What the fuck?" Yo, that shit was crazy. You know what I mean? That shit was crazy, But after that, Tech wrote for my first magazine I put together, Our Swords, Our Sacred Words, Our Swords. He wrote for me, A lot of other things he did for me, you know what I'm saying? But, again, serious reader. I think if you ever want to get into the benefits of knowing a good political history, watch interviews by Immortal Technique. His political knowledge and analysis is some of the best I heard. It sounds crazy to people, but I put him on a level of Noam Chomsky as far as their worthiness, their abilities to express themselves and express the ideas. I really put him on that level. You know what I mean? I really do. So, he's something else. He's something else, Yeah, man, that's Sam Hill. Yo, God, I'm not. You know what's funny? I answered in the third person on that, and he acted like I didn't answer. And it's like, yo, he doesn't even know how to read. Like, I'm not making nobody famous anymore, or more popular. I can't make people famous, but I can make people viable. And I'm not doing that. We're not doing that. He's a punk, a giant punk. You know what I mean? He needs to worry about the deterioration of his body. You know what I'm saying? From all the collection of disease that his body has. You know what I'm saying? The guy was withering away, like he looked like a crackhead when I was trying to teach him. His brother should be worrying about staying alive and stuff. Peace. And instead of always trying to, get me to answer some kind of diss, I already smoked him anyway, right? G1, you said, is it really beneficial to read a book over 30 weeks versus just focusing on reading whatever book is as fast as time that one could comprehend? I'm saying as far as retention of it. No. You know why? Because I think it's a very big mistake to assume that hopping around from book to book is a bad idea. No matter what you think or when anyone thinks, life, you do not learn things in life one thing at a time. You know what I'm saying? You're bombarded with information at all times. At all times are you bombarded with information. So to think that you don't know how to, that one doesn't know how to sift through information and make these decisions here, make those decisions there, I think that's more the big mistake. You know what I mean? That to me is you know a bigger mistake. You know what I mean? But I would say that when you write in a book, this leads up to another thing about taking notes. You're always highlighting things, you're always taking notes. And if you feel like you're going to lose the note, you make a note in the note. So, like 99% of the books I read, 95, whatever it is, high amount, they're digital. So, I'm going to be able to make notes in here. So, not just highlight stuff, but make notes. So, I'm going to retain stuff because I'm making notes. Now, for me, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 23, 25, 27, 28, 30, 32. All right, as we keep going, there's at least 50 books I'm reading at the same time. They don't all get read at the same time, though. Like some don't get read that week, others get read that week. Depends on the prioritize or the importance of the information, you know? So certain things you'll know if you can go back to it and you'll not retain it. So like if I go back for a long time to a novel, I may not retain everything. But it's not that much of a big deal. But other books I do, so I could do that. You know what I mean? So it matters. You have to gauge your retention, but do not gauge your retention on an assumption of losing the information, because that's what you're logging. And this is also go with some of the other writing exercise I put in there, like your journal. That's something in the curriculum that I give out, but it'll be reinforced there because in the journal, you should be writing about the books you read. And that's the majority of what I write about is what I'm reading about. You know, I write about what I'm reading about and I copy. It's my technique. I copy all the passages that I find most relevant again into my journals. You know, it's an exercise of memorization. It's an exercise of emphasis, you know? So, yeah, I would say G1, like worrying about retention is not a thing. We can't, let me look from an angle that my personal perspective that you may agree with. We're the true and living God. You know what I mean? One of my great brothers, he's called Infinite Mind. I bear witness to that. Because the original man, just as my brother Infinite Mind, we original people have infinite minds. I don't respect the limits of the mind. Whenever I'm not able to do something, I just need extra rest. You see? Extra nutrients, extra supplementation, extra positivity. You know what I mean? Is it a useful goal? Then make it happen. It's really my motto, you know, my mantra, my thought process, you know. You see, King, that's another level. That's a deeper level, you know? And I think that with people like you, very similar to Tupac, I put in the same vein. And if you guys think I'm reaching, you need to listen to King's stuff. Both King and Pac, they have an ability to write and find a depth in a simplicity of words. You know what I mean? They don't need to say a whole bunch of things. It's the particular significant thing that they say and the way that they say it. You know what I mean? I think that's where we contrast so dope. You know what I mean? Because when I rhyme with them, I try to share as many heavy things that are on my mind, you know, and the people that know me, if you're learning from me, if you with me if you know me on a daily basis like King does, you know that my mind is always churning ideas and stuff. So artistically, that's how I like to do it, you know. That's why I find my poetic peaks in using the entire gamut of all of my ideas, the depth of all of my ideas, and the challenge of trying to put that all into a song. You know what I mean? And so it just comes out that way. You know what I mean? But when I think about like who are the great lyricists, I mean Tupac has to be up there. You know? I mean, it's funny how people don't really gauge Tupac over Biggie, and he was just more technically astute. And that gets confused with being more lyrically deep or having better lyrically depth. He had vocal dexterity, and so the verbal dexterity could be more layered and piled. But he wasn't a better lyricist. First, second, and third person narratives, right? Quotables. I know it sounds crazy, but Tupac has more quotables. Subject matter, um, personas, right? Meaning, like, and I liken him to Langston Hughes, the way he was able to get into different characters' mindsets. Tupac was doing all that. You know what I mean? And at an emotional level, when I work with King, I think the reason that I was able to channel my emotions into music as the way I am now is because of King having such a massive emotional and soulful ability on the mic. You know what I mean? You just listen to certain songs like on our second album that we did together, The Unlearned Visions. I don't have that fury on the last verse if it's not for listening, like really, really paying attention to what he was saying, you know? Like that was the only way that I could respond, you know what I mean? And add on and make a song out of that, you know what I mean? You know, it's why I write about this music because we have like legends among the mist, you know what I mean? Like one of the great unsung catalogs. They're gonna make an unsung episode of King. Come on, one day, watch. And you know what? I'm gonna be the fucking host of that. You know what I mean? Because really, my whole career, this invisible Renaissance writing is like a giant, an endless unsung episode. You know what I mean? You know? Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Influence and all that. Yeah. You know, a lot of guys are influenced. People you don't even think about. Listen to Killer Priest though, and how he was able to become this legendary folk MC. I mean, that's a lot of that has to do with Tupac. Peace, God. So, you know, and that's the thing. That's the thing only King says. You know, the tapping into human frailty has nothing to do with being weak. It has to do with being, you know, real. You know, even I don't tap into that. You know what I'm saying? Even I don't tap into that. You know what I'm saying? Because the way I'm often moving, I'm trying to reflect what I am exactly on the record. I often ignore in my own life. I ignore any type of frailty. You know what I'm saying? I don't think I'm able to do anything if I even give it the slight bit of thought. You know what I mean? You know, but yet it comes out. Yet it comes out because of King. You know, the Xenobus, my solo album, the title track. You know what I mean? You know, that's definitely King. You know, but listen, I interviewed Killer Priest for his second album. Listen to the third album. A lot of people don't know his third album like that, but third, fourth, you see him with the high inflection. You know, like you know, Tupac, yeah, try to kill me. He's not doing it like that, but he's doing the high inflection. And you know, he said he was influenced by Tupac too. So it's not like I'm saying anything that he didn't say about himself. But you know, just a legendary artist. And I think, and I say this all the time. I know that King Kamal's in that pantheon. When we talk about soulful MCs, you know, you're gonna say Tupac, Ghostface. You know, on a cryptic level, you might say like, you know, I'm giving all angles that just come to my head. You might say Chino XL, things like that. But in that short list, King is there. King is there. You know, he's in that grouping of men. You know what I mean? Me, I've always cared about the. Obviously, I'm influenced most by like the RZAs, the KRSs, things like that. You know, but
Get my bag first. Yeah, I was from Thompson, G. I don't know if I'm coming back this way.
yeah, you know, if we're doing that in school, the idea that the reason they do that in school is because you need to know all these things. But the benefit of doing that in school, breaking it to subjects, is people could you able to find talents. You know what I mean? Find the talents of the individual. You know what I mean? So it's very that's crazy. That's a crazy song. Divine, I don't know if I heard that song. I gotta hear it again. You know what I mean? You know? But I would like everybody to tap into some kind of art. When you start to write poetry or write art or something like on a written level, it'll also help you feel like you could express yourself. And that helps you also be able to write down your ideas. You know what I mean? When I met Infinite Mind, this is the best example because everybody, I look up Infinite Mind, Infinite Seven Mind, right? When I started teaching him, he was his MC skills, like they were already there, obviously, right? They were honed in over a whole lifetime of growing up in this culture of hip hop. And the thing about it was when he was showing me how he's writing his rhymes, I was like, listen, you have the capacity to write essays, you know, just some editing, just some thought process to it, practice. Eventually, he was writing essays and getting A's and writing exceptional papers when he went to college. You know, I mean, this is a brother that you know he has the ability to write a great book. You know, but yeah, I'll be telling him that too. You know, gee, you said did I see what you wrote way above the retention? No, I did not. Let's go up. My apologies if I missed something. Let's see. Let's see. Will you talk about the chicharrones? Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. I think I had mentioned that. That's what I saw. Yeah, that's what I saw above. I mean, That's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. You know, fried like fried foods like intestines crap. There's no way that fried intestines could be healthier than spinach and all that kind of stuff. You know, um, it's like metrics in sports where they just say stupid shit like, chuck a 3-pointer, and that's a better than a 2. And you see all these guys just ping pong. That's the NBA ping pong. You're just watching 3-pointers clanging off the rims, right? The metrics say that going for the 3 is a better idea, right? It's the same thing with some of these studies, though. They'll do studies on like what is the immediate, and like there's immediate nutrients that you see in a lot of when you eat meat. You know what I'm saying? And intestines and things like that. But that doesn't mean that that has an overall effect in being retained, because it's coming in a package of garbage. You know what I mean? A package of stuff that the body can't handle, absorb, etc., etc. You know? Yeah, but I added on to the response anyway, so it's peace. Rugged, raw. Let me tell you something, King. I used to have Fridays off. That's why Thursday became the day that I teach. I was working at a publishing company. I had Fridays off, and Infinite Mind was such a. The intensity you hear on the mic was the intensity you had getting 120 lessons. And we'd have these great ciphers. I had a lot of students, and Infinite Mind would rhyme off the head for like. All I know is I'd be going home at like 2, 3 a.m. And at that time when I started to teach, I lived in P.E.A.C.E. So I had to take. How did I get home? I had to take the. How the hell did I get home? I'm trying to remember. You gotta take the. I gotta get to 180. Yeah, I was taking the A train to 168th Street, transferring to the 1 train, taking it to 181st, then taking the BX3 or BX36, I think, cross town, crossing into P-Line. So it's not distance-wise, it's not a long trip, not like what I do now, but it was a lot of transfers and stuff. Later, I lived in the Heights, so that was real easy. But those early days when I was teaching Infinite Mind, still was going home late. Didn't matter because they was rhyming to like 2, 3 a.m. You know what I mean? But yeah, a Dark Him Planet Asia, yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, 2 greats on the mic. Yeah, 2 greats on the mic. People don't realize how good Dark Him is. You know what I mean? And I just say that because I don't know why people try to diss him with some half-baked shit. Just weak lyrics, weak stuff. I'll roast you. Yeah, I'll kill you. You shouldn't worry about me. I'll blast you. Hurt you. You're getting beat. Stomp you with my cleat. This is the greatest defeat. Terrible. But that's all I have to say about that. This is really, really whack. Really whack. And the reason that I heard, I don't know if it's true, that I heard why the guy wrote this. He's supposed to be a 5% too, man. Maybe I met him because I know a lot of guys with the same name. I don't know, but dissing another god on a record for what I heard happen is just it's petty, and it's really a violation to me of our whole righteous code, man. Like, you Well, in this the Hillbilly finals, you know, Oklahoma and Indiana. I want OKC to win because I hate Indiana, right? Obviously. No, I don't like Halliburton, though. It doesn't matter that he beat the Knicks, though. I don't like him at all. I don't like the way he plays. I think it looks disgusting. Same reason I've been giving him LeBron's whole career. Forget about the chokes and all that. I don't like the way LeBron plays, just like Paul Pierce. I never liked the way he plays. He's a gamer, dope, Hall of Famer. Their game is disgusting, and that's not what I don't. I'm much more frivolous with basketball. Baseball, I'm a big Mets fan, and I love to study the game. You know, it's a wonderful chess game, thinking game. You know, with great athletic ability and technicalities and strategies. But with basketball, I just like to watch like dynamic showmen. You know what I mean? I don't want to see that. The way he shoots, come on. You got to be tall to shoot that stupid. You know what I mean? Disgusting. The only set shot that I respected was Magic Johnson. You know? That was it. Whatever his half jumper, it's gross. That big lollipop shot. You know what I mean? And you know why that big shot made the Knicks? It's real simple. Look at the rotation on the ball. He throws a knuckleball up there. Shoots a knuckleball. The thing doesn't spin. You know, so it gets dead on the back of the rim. You know, because it's a big lollipop that's coming down as a knuckleball. It's disgusting to watch. Disgusting. You know, I never watched SGA a lot, so I don't know if he's on a flopping tip. I saw a couple of flops, but you gotta really be flopping like every minute of the game to be on LeBron's level. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. That's crazy. It's a southern state trapped in the Midwest. The only hick that I really felt was that is my favorite white player, the hick from French Lick. You know, that's the only one I'm dealing with. Larry Bird. That's the only one. You know, Larry Bird, that guy he would kill now too. He would kill now too. He'd be in better shape to match up because they would know more. He would kill. If you think Luka's killing, nah, Bird would destroy that, you know. But I've seen a little SGA, and I like that he has a mid-range game. That's exciting to watch. I like that. But nothing else really. I don't know if he plays good defense. I don't know much else. Because like I said, I'm frivolous, and I don't really like the NBA now. I don't like all this 3-point shots. Look at the Knicks only beat Boston because Boston wanted to live and die by the three. If you look at it, if they really thought about it in a better way, they could have beaten the Knicks, you know. But I'm glad the Knicks won. I'm just saying, you know. I'm just saying. But and it's too bad because the Knicks could have stole a chip though. None of these teams seem dominant to me, you know. Only Skip Bayless thinks OKC is a dominant team, you know. But I think the league is whack. I really do. Like I really only check out Curry stuff. Kyrie, but he got injured. You know, the showman. You know. I don't have much thoughts on that. You know, I don't have much thoughts on that. He was gonna pay the price because if they continue with Brunson and what's his name, Dominicano ese Cat, right? They're great players, and I think they're both gamers. That's why I like them. But they don't play defense though. So getting Tibbs to mix and match that was a difficulty. You know, he tried at the end. I don't think it was too little late. You know, but you know, they pay you for performance, and they really thought that they should be beating Indiana. So. You know, that's just what happens. You know, you never know. Maybe they don't. You know, but if you're thinking objectively, it would have been a surprise if the Knicks won. You know? Not against Indiana. I mean the chip. You know, because I thought that can't win without defense, man. You know, look at all the juggernaut teams though, right? Pistons. They're right. Lakers didn't get known as defense, but how you getting a fast break so much? Because you're playing defense, you know. They played good defense, fast defense. They had a speed defense. Those guys, Michael Cooper and then Kareem Clark in the middle. Yeah, Magic was a good defender because he was tall. You know what I mean? So he stifled a lot of in an odd place. So he stifled the Lakers, right? Lakers, Pistons, Celtics had great defense, right? When they had Bill Walton and all those, Kevin McHale, Parrish, Dennis Johnson, right? All the juggernauts, the Warriors, led when Draymond. He's not just a kick you in the balls guy. Right? He's a great defender, and it led to a swarming defense. Right? You gotta have defense. You gotta have defense because the offense is triggered off that. My 2 cents. That's what I think. You know what I mean? That's what I think. One thing though is, listen, I think what I don't like is the Knicks fan base though. I think it's too savage though, and it's because too many Yankee fans are in there. Yeah, I guess I could say that because I'm a Mets fan. But like this arrogance that they're better than everybody because they're the Knicks. And vehemently cursing and listen. I know I sound old saying that, but like I don't mean like just cursing like F the Celtics, this and that. I mean like you're cursing people's moms and getting dirty and greedy, and it's a little too much, man. Like you're turning into a soccer event, like like you're doing too much. I didn't know that. I didn't know that, Jay. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, but you always need defense throughout history. More often than not, the not just the championship team, but the juggernaut teams. The real um, teams that keep going back, and the legacies, right? They got great defense. The Bulls had great defense. Definitely the second run. The second run had Pippen and Rodman and Jordan. Those are all NBA first team all defense guys. 3 guys. Yeah, you're gonna have a problem. You're gonna have a big problem, right? I mean, it shows you how great Jordan was, though, because Pippen wasn't a great scorer, and Rodman was not a scorer at all. He's worse than Draymond, and he was able to, you know. But yeah, that's what I think. They need better defense. You know, and it's got a defense is hustle. Look at Curry. He wasn't a great defender, and he's gotten much better because he hustles. So because he's athletic and hustle, just concentrate on moving your feet, keep your hands up. So he's not a legend defender, but he's respectful now. So that's what I think. Again, I don't watch so much basketball anymore. I really don't. I can't stand the whole game. 60, 70 threes in a game. Definitely, I don't want to see that. I think the mid-range game is a prettier thing. Look at Melo. Melo, right? The God. He does, huh? He grabs first, huh? I gotta check that out. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. Like I said, I'm I'm stuck rooting because I don't like Halliburton. So right, and again, defense wins, right? Because look, I'm a big Isaiah Thomas fan. That was my hero when I was a kid. But if you're allowed to go as far as you can with defense, you can win because they was not just doing defense; they were doing most of the Pistons defense. So they try to talk, but that most of that shit was illegal. You know what I mean? I mean, what they were doing to Jordan, though, that was pretty much illegal. And then the Knicks took that. The Knicks took that, and they tried to run with that, and it didn't work. As far as getting a chip, but they were successful. But the way they were playing Jordan, though, that was illegal to me. Illegal. What they used to do. But yeah, guys. Yeah, I'm here. Better than Yeah, man. Yeah. But yo, I really don't. I don't care too much. I don't. If you don't enjoy it, why would I watch it? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, but So guys, I didn't get anybody's build of what they thought they had achieved during Show and Prove. But if you come into Show and Prove, make sure that's how you roll. You know what I mean? Listen, don't concern. Listen, do this though. They always talk about people doing bum stuff across the street, doing this that's not right and exact. You know how we change that? Don't hang around with that. Don't be like, yo, the elder want to build on the smoke and everything like that. Yo, we do too much of that stuff. You know what I mean? We do too much of that. You know, make the cipher the way it ought to be. You take charge by not being in the cipher or making your own, or going to the cipher and supporting the cipher that is positive. That's all I have to say about that. We're not here. I shouldn't have to teach anybody that has this. If I gotta go teach you how to be righteous and not to pee on the side of a building and shit, that's not what I'm not here for that. I'm not here to teach grown men with knowledge. You know, so if the cipher's no good, go somewhere else. Make your own. You know, if it's close where it shouldn't be, then you defend the cipher that you're at. That's all I have to say. You know what I mean? But that's about it. You know? So let it be a re-up your plan. And how is your training going? How is your diet? Um what works have you made? You know what I'm saying? You know, me and the God King, we was planning, we was building about all this stuff, you know? So make these plans known, you know? It's always a good thing. Yeah. But guys, I try to give you a little extra because I was out helping the guys. Gonna make sure improve. There's events all weekend. I'm gonna be here Sunday, you know what I'm saying? Friday, I think that there's always a meet and greet here. Saturday, there's always stuff going on at the school. So, you know. I haven't checked it out though. I don't I when he first released it, he said it was on Amazon, and I went to Amazon. I didn't see a link. Um, and I keep it real, guy. I know him. I didn't even know he could write. I'm just keeping it real. So I'm pleasantly pleased that he's doing something like that. Um, but I definitely want to, that's peace. That's peace. You know what I mean? He's not always well spoken. I'm not talking about his records. His records are gritty and everything. They're incredible. But he's not always well spoken, so that's why I was surprised. But me too. I love that there's a complete daring to just try new things and that's a success. And guys, email me Sunez97 at Gmail if you want books, if you don't know what to read, if you like, yo, he's talking all this writing and reading stuff, and I don't have anything. Email me, man. I give you some books. Set up your apps; they're free, and get yourself going. But you know, if you're actually interested in being a writer, I'm gonna have that plus lesson there. At the same time, though, the bonus of that plus lesson is if you want to write your own books and everything, and I can walk you through that on a personal level. So you guys let me know, okay? So with that said, you know, I got more work to do, so I'm gonna let everybody go. And yo, willing that you all showed improved, all right, and continue to show improve. Peace.